So that was trustees, the faculty, the staff, the alumni, community members. It's my honor to welcome you here tonight to the 2022 Convocation of Hartford International University for Religion and Peace, the event that begins the school year. My name is Joel Moore. I am president here at HIU, an institution that was founded way back in 1834 and has 188 long history. It is really good to have you here. And I'd like to welcome you, especially students, to this sacred moment. You are now part of this institution. You are part of a sacred history. I mean that. This is a sacred place. This ground, this place we are on, is sacred. There are people that have made it sacred. In fact, our speaker tonight, I consider someone who is instrumental in making this a sacred place, where Muslims can come and study and become chaplains. That is sacred to me. It's beautiful. Thank you, Professor Mattson. Our mission here has not changed. Our name has changed, but our mission remains the same. Hartford International University serves God by preparing leaders, students, scholars, and religious institutions to understand and live faithfully in today's multi-faith and pluralistic world. We serve God by teaching, research, informing the public, and engaging persons in dialogue. And lastly, our mission says that we serve God by affirming the particularities of faith and social context, while openly exploring differences and commonalities. What a great mission. What an honor to be part of that. Wow. You'll notice that our mission makes clear that we serve God in all that we do. And I invite you as students into that mission. You're not here to observe it. You are here to be part of it. This mission depends on you, and we serve God in doing so. As part of our unique approach to education, we hope to learn with and from you as well. This is not about sage on the stage here at HIU. You bring something unique to this space. So thank you for joining us and teaching us as well. All that we do, we serve God, and this is all in some ways an act of prayer. I mean that. I hope that your time here is an act of prayer. And so, in that spirit, the spirit of prayer, we will begin our festivities, our beginnings today, as we often do, which begins with a call to prayer. And I'd like to call Ms. Ines Gazel, who is here to provide the call to prayer. Thank you, Ines.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين.
In the name of the one God, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is for God, the Lord of the worlds, the most gracious, the most merciful, the master of the day of judgment. You alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. Show us the straight path, the path of those upon whom you have bestowed favor, not of those who have incurred your anger, nor of those who go astray. Amen. Amen.
Dear students, staff, colleagues, President Lohr, ambassadors, and board members near and far, greetings and welcome. Today we mark the 189th annual convocation of our esteemed institution. But today is also our first convocation as Hartford International University for Religion and Peace. Our community has worn many names since its founding. Among them, the Theological Institute of Connecticut, Hartford School of Religious Pedagogy, and the Hartford Seminary Foundation. Our component parts have been called the Hartford School of Missions and the Institute of Church and Community. Over the years, each name change has represented another iteration of our ongoing work. Our new name is no different. So what story does the name Hartford International University for Religion and Peace, the acronym HIU for those whose mouths get tired, what does it tell us about who we are now? We are a university. For some years already, HIU has been a place of rigorous academic learning, endorsed by a number of accrediting agencies. But in the last couple of years, we've re-envisioned our learning goals, sharpened our focus, and honed our curricula. Specifically, we've reconfigured our cooperative MDiv and PhD programs. We're also coming off of the inaugural year of 3 new master's degree programs. The Master's in International Peacebuilding, the Master's in Interreligious Studies, and the Master's in Chaplaincy, the last which offers an optional pathway in Islamic Chaplaincy. We are not a new school. As a case in point, tomorrow, we're celebrating with our esteemed guest, Dr. Ingrid Mattson, 20 years of Islamic chaplaincy education. But we are living into a new identity, to serve in a new era. All around us, old paradigms are giving way to new ones. We are increasingly recognizing the fragility of our social institutions, the perilousness of our climate. I am confident that our new degree programs are right for this era, and will soon be recognized, in fact, are already being recognized, for the exceptional programs of study that they are. Back to our name, Hartford International University for Religion and Peace. It was so important for us to have the two terms, religion and peace, stand side by side, because for so many, religion has been perceived as an opponent of peace. One intellectual is famous for his contention that, quote, because religion teaches people that they have access to a divine truth that can never be questioned, it inevitably breeds intolerance toward those who don't share the same beliefs, end quote. Religion inevitably breeds intolerance. This famous intellectual clearly didn't study at Hartford International University for Religion and Peace. Our name is our adamant insistence that religion and peace can, do, and must go hand in hand. And that is the work that we do here together. As we are international, we celebrate the multiple cultures that form our community. We are an intentionally multi-faith setting where people of multiple religions, multiple spiritualities, and no religion learn together. This is not always easy, and so we practice. We practice how to engage in substantive dialogue about difficult theological and ethical topics. We practice how to talk about our own religious beliefs and traditions, even when our forebears didn't always offer peace and love to one another, to put it mildly. We work to model for others how to build relationships with those who are unlike us, and so that we may collaborate peacefully and productively for the common good. Dear students, I don't want you to come out of HIU necessarily holding the same views as I do, nor do I want you coming out of here having the same opinions as your classmates. That is not interreligious education. What we do want is to help you dig deeper into your own tradition, to value your own identity, because it is only when you respect your identity that you can learn how to respect the identity of the very different person sitting next to you. In choosing HIU, you've chosen to step out of your comfort zone. But by stepping out, you are also allowing others to peer in. This means that you, your worldview, your traditions, and your culture are as much a part of the courses you take here as is the content itself. I'm excited for you and proud that you are choosing us to walk with. There's a Jewish tradition that when a baby is born, the baby is not named right away. Instead, the child lives in this world for some time, for 8 days to be precise. And then, on the 8th day at the Brit Milah ceremony, the baby receives a name. A Jewish belief is that it is only when the baby receives this name that the child is sanctified by God's commandments and brought into the covenant of Abraham. This past year, we began to live into our new identity, and shortly thereafter, we chose our new name. Now that we've lived a little with this new name, Hartford International University for Religion and Peace, it is time for our community to be sanctified by it and brought into a covenant of responsibility. We are responsible through diligent study, broad-mindedness, and empathic dialogue to grow into ambassadors of peace. And so, I wish all of us a productive 2022-2023 academic year as we learn together in peace and for peace. Thank you. Nancy? Oh, Ingrid. Ingrid. Oh. And now, welcome. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dean Dina. Talk about names. Well, that's so your fate, your destiny was written for sure. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. I'm just so happy, really, to be here. Can you tell? I'm happy. I'm really happy. Thank you, President Joel, Lord, Dina Grant, Susan Schoenberg, and all of those who made it possible for me to come back here to Hartford. Now, it'll take me a while to get used to the new name, and I have to say, HIU is okay, but I was thinking maybe higher rap might be a little bit more catchy. HIUR, higher, our religion and peace rap. So just try that one out too for an acronym. I like a higher rap for Hartford. But it's really an honor to speak with you on this occasion, and it's a deeply emotional moment for me to reflect on what God has destined for me and for all of us in the 23 years since I first came to what was then Hartford Seminary for my first full-time academic position. Tomorrow we'll be reflecting on and celebrating the first Islamic Chaplaincy Program in North America, which we initiated a few years after my arrival, or started pretty much right away, but launched a few years later. And just in one moment for old folks' time here. So I need to think back to all of those who were here at that time and really give thanks for those who were key supporters and role models for the program. Barbara Brown-Zygmunt was the president at that time. Worth Loomis, God have mercy on his soul. Sweet Worth was just amazing, driving around to military bases and trying to figure things out. The Holy Trinity of serving community and giving leadership programs for the community, Ben Watts, Ephraim Augusto, and M.T. Winter, who really showed what can happen when you take seriously the gifts that God has given everyone to serve, and you give them a position for that. My friend, Scott Thuma, Imam Qasim Sharif, may God have mercy on his soul, from the Hartford Mosque, who was just such a force for all of us here, and Dr. Salim Bajwa, who was really responsible very much on the board. I also have to give thanks for the wonderful students who came when we were still building the program, and had faith that this would become something good. And those early students are as responsible as any professor for shaping this program and really the field of Islamic chaplaincy in America. Early students, I'm thinking about Abdullah Antepli, Marwa Ali, Sahib Sultan, my heart. May God elevate him in paradise. Ahmed Bajwa, Jay Starr, Mustafa Bose, Sharita Hussain, and of course Dr. Bilal Ansari, who directs the Islamic Chaplaincy Program, and so many more. So that's my old people's reminiscence that I have to begin with. Thank you for indulging me. But for the rest of the short time I'm speaking with you today, I wish to speak primarily also, as Dean Grant did, to those who have newly arrived at Hartford at the Hartford International University for Religion and Peace as students, those who have taken the courageous step of embarking upon multi-religious education. And I'm going to frame my remarks around my favorite story, a primordial story, a sacred story that is interpreted and told quite differently by Muslims and Christians and Jews. It's the story of a person, a woman who was enslaved, demeaned and displaced, yet God made her constantly aware of her own divinely created dignity, and that could never be taken away by any person, man or woman. And I return to her story in my life of faith as one who returns again and again for a drink of fresh water on a long, hot day. So I want to share a little bit about that story, how I tell it, and then maybe reflect on a few lessons for all of us, but especially for those who are embarking on this new educational and spiritual journey here at this university. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, tells his followers the story of Hajar, who is our mother. In English, often she's referred to as Hagar. We say Hajar, is how we pronounce her name. And we know that Ibrahim brought her from where they were living, where he was living with Sarah and their children, through the desert and to a very hot and dry place. To continue the story in the Prophet Muhammad's words, Ismail's mother followed Ibrahim and said, "O Ibrahim, where are you going? Leaving us in this valley where there is no person whose company we may enjoy, nor is there anything here." She repeated that many times, but he did not look back. And then she asked, "Has God ordered you to do so?" He said, "Yes." Then she said, "Then he will not neglect us." And she turned around and went back. And Ibrahim went on his way. And once he got further down the road, made a supplication to God to bless his family that he was leaving there. Hajar was now on her own, and she took on the challenge. The first challenge, the deepest challenge, was she was without any provisions except one skin of water. She was running out. What could she do at this point? And so she looked, and there were 2 hills. And she began running back and forth between the tops of these hills, where she would stand at this high place and look out. Is there anyone coming? Maybe someone will come, and they will save me. She didn't see anyone, so she ran to the other one and did the same thing, running, exerting great physical effort, and knowing that there had to be a solution. As she was doing this, after she had done this 7 times, she heard a voice, and suddenly the angel, ordered by God, opened up a spring underneath her baby, and the water started to flow. And she went, as she saw the water flowing, then she went with her water skin and filled it up, and then started trying to make a little kind of basin so she could save some of the water. The Prophet Muhammad, telling the story, says, "May God bestow mercy on Ismail's mother. Had she left the water of Zamzam to flow freely, it would have been a stream flowing on the surface of the earth, like a brook or a river." But they were able to settle now. Some people, eventually, seeing the birds that were attracted by the water, came by. They were amazed. They knew there hadn't been water here before. And they saw Hajar, and they said, "Is it okay? Can we settle with you?" And she said, "Yes, come, you can settle with us, but you can't control the water." And then her son grew up, and she found a wife, and they married, and generations came to inhabit this place. And the Prophet Muhammad near the end of the story says, Ismail's mother was pleased with the situation, and she used to love to share the company of the people. So what lessons can we learn from this story for our journey of faith and spiritual growth and intellectual growth in our faith in this multi-religious setting? So the first thing I want to point out is that this story that is told by the Prophet Muhammad to his early followers is different than the story as it's told in the Hebrew Bible or the Christian tradition, keeping in mind that, of course, the Hebrew Bible and the Jewish traditional interpretation of it and the Christian tradition has also many voice, is multivocal, and there are many different takes, we could say, on the story. But what's remarkable is that in the story, as the Prophet Muhammad told it, and as I've paraphrased it, Hajar is a woman who is strong. She is heroic. She is active. She is not a other woman. She is not a pathetic figure. She is not a figure of being cast aside, but she is a woman who is brought to a place to become the spiritual and the worldly matriarch of a new people and a new foundation. Now, when we come together for multi-religious education, there will be many times when we hear another person, perhaps another student, perhaps a professor, perhaps a traditional text or teaching from another tradition, that might characterize our own scripture, our own faith tradition, our own spiritual exemplars in ways we do not recognize. Maybe we even find those characterizations offensive. So one of the first lessons we learn in a setting like this is how to manage these moments. Now, Hartford Seminary, whatever that first name was, Dina, began as a place in the 19th century where people from one faith tradition deemed themselves authorized to frame and characterize other people's faiths and beliefs, denying that those others had any truth or even the rational or spiritual capacity for insight. Now, it is the place where people from many perspectives and traditions can tell and explore their own stories, as well as explore new interpretations or perspectives from other traditions. We can't avoid uncomfortable moments. Be ready for them. Be ready for the moment when you might have to intervene politely to express that you feel you've been misunderstood or your tradition has been mischaracterized. And be ready to be told by others that the innocent comment you made or the interpretation you gave that you believe to be definitive or uncontroversial just might be offensive to others, or might be only one of many possible interpretations in your own tradition. Be ready for that. And be brave, be patient, and be honest. As for the lessons from Hajar's story, as I have told it, we see that when she is presented with a troubling situation, she's brave enough to ask for clarification. She questions Abraham, who is a prophet, who is her husband, who is her master. Has God ordered you to do this? She asks him multiple times. And by the way, we never hear that he objects to her tone, which seems to be a huge concern among many these days when someone speaks up and asks such questions. Discerning God's will and voice and understanding how the divine voice relates to human authority will perhaps always be the greatest challenge of faith. It is a never-ending struggle. In this act of discernment, those of us who engage in theological or divinity studies engage with many resources: scholarship, tradition, prayer, spiritual purification, community. Still, we must be humble and patient, especially patient with ourselves, because God gives us insight and understanding according to God's time and not ours. Surely Hajjah would have preferred to have understood what God was commanding and what his plan was for her at many moments in her life before she arrived at that barren place, even if she had only understood a few days earlier on that difficult desert journey. I'm sure she thought that would have been nice, but it wasn't her choice. She had to wait for God to reveal his plan to her and for her understanding to come when it was God's decision to do so. Another lesson we take from Hajjah is to have hope and faith in the future, despite the overwhelming appearance of a very grim future indeed. Hajjah declares and acts upon her faith in God, despite the improbability that her life and her son's life could ever be sustained in that barren place. And then she exerts great effort in looking for a solution. Now, she responds to her dire situation by undertaking action based on the knowledge she has of similar situations. She doesn't have divine knowledge, so she does the best she can, relying on practical wisdom and life experience. She runs back and forth between those hills looking for a caravan of people. She's looking in the wrong place, but her effort is sincere. And God saves her through a completely unexpected intervention. This doesn't mean that her effort is useless or that she is a lesson in a lack of imagination. It means that, and if that were the case, then certainly, at least for Muslims, this running back and forth between Safa and Marwa, between these two hills, would not be uplifted as a sacred ritual that we imitate until today. So what does it show? She's doing something that is not the action that actually brings the water. What it shows is that if we are sincere, we make our best effort, even if we are wrong in our calculations. God made us human and expects a human effort from us. And we gain strength and resilience from that effort. And we can hope for God's grace as we make mistakes. And from Hajjah's story, we take another humbling lesson of our humanity, that our faith and hope will not always be at the highest point. In fact, just as we receive grace, just as the water begins to flow, we might be beset by fear. What if it stops? When the miracle spring opens for Hajjah, she fears it will not last, and her attempt to save the water stops it from flowing over the ground to become a river. Now, the spring of Zamzam remains a source of life until today. It remains a good thing, and her faith remains an inspiration. At the same time, we take the lesson that her fear results in a limit in that blessing to later generations. Our actions can affect later generations, even when we try. Hartford students, I pray that God will give you many openings this year. But know that when God gives us an opening, the awesomeness can be overwhelming. It can make us afraid, and then we might respond by trying to limit it. Or we are afraid it will disappear, so we try to control it. We try to contain it. This is a human reaction. But look around this world, the dams are breaking, the dikes are crumbling. So, beloved brothers and sisters, let the waters flow. Do not put up barriers because you are afraid. If you need a rest, take it. You can step back and witness the beauty of how the waters flow on and benefit others. But don't panic and try to limit it or keep it for yourself. Finally, we learn from our mother, Hajjah, that as heroic as individual efforts may be, as pure as our sincerity may be, a good and faithful life is one lived in community. Hajj's hospitality is exemplary. Come, they ask, can we come and settle with you? And she says yes. And her decision to keep control of the water as a trustee for the community shows her hard-earned, mature confidence that despite having been enslaved and uprooted from her home multiple times and being left with the most minimal of life-sustaining resources and being underestimated by many, she has gained the wisdom and the experience she needs to benefit the greater community and benefiting us until today. Through her effort and hospitality, she creates a new city, a new people, a new spiritual home. She creates for herself another family and a new community of friends and neighbors. She sets aside fear for the joy of living among these people. Never forget joy. The Prophet Muhammad said she used to love to share the company of the people. Dear students at Hartford International University, you have all shown courage and faith in making the decision to embark upon multi-faith education. I pray that springs of insight, knowledge, and discernment will open up at your feet, and that the waters will flow for you and your fellow students, professors, and the whole community.
I give thanks to the leadership of this institution that I am still here, and I give grateful thanks to the Divine Spirit that I am still standing. And I'm grateful to be able to lead you in a song of peace, reflective of the theme, not only of this evening, this weekend, of our programs, but the deepest theme of our hearts, so needed at this time in the world in which we live. So, I'm going to go a note here. And this is going to be your part. Peace to you, my friend, go in love. Peace to you, my friend, go in love. Very good. Again. Peace to you, my friend, go in love. Okay, you're really good. So good that I'm going to invite you to form two choirs. Okay. Choir 1, choir 2. You start, I'll bring you in when you're in. Peace to you, my friend, go in love. 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 God of love, you take away our failure to love. Fill us with the warmth of your way. Open us to everyone
So this is that part in the ceremony, the event, where we officially begin the new year. And so it's my pleasure and honor to do so. But first, because this will kind of end my portion, and then we'll move into a benediction, let me just say thank you to the participants. And thank you. Dina, wow. We need to record that speech and put it into a magazine to help tell the message of our name. It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mattson. Your teaching, I can see why your program is so powerful. And I'm blessed to sit at your feet as your student, as your apprentice. I mean that sincerely. As a Christian, as a president, as a scholar myself, thank you. It's an honor, a real honor. So, it's kind of become a tradition, at least I want it to be one. I never have been able to figure out what this was. When you become president, you find things in your office that the former president leaves you. There's some very interesting medallions you can look at. I can share with you. If you ever want to come in and look at some of the artifacts, they're in my office. This one, I really don't know what it is, but I know the president used it in the past, and it's some kind of gavel. And I've decided that I'm just going to use it to start each academic year. I've done so every year that I've been here. And so this will begin the academic year. And now, by the power vested in me by the Board of Trustees, which is a serious thing. These trustees are here. I think they vested in this power. By the trustees of Hartford International University for Religion and Peace, and with the support of an amazing faculty and staff, I hereby declare that the 2022 to 2023 academic year has now begun. May God give you all strength, especially students, as you work through this year. Amen and amen. I'd like to invite Bishop Dr. Benjamin Watts, Faculty Associate in Religion and Community Life, to provide our closing words, a good word of benediction.
What a beautiful program, and how blessed we are. And to have watched the growth of the program and the 20 years, and to see Ingrid here today just warms my heart. I've seen what, excuse me, I'll put it in my Christian terms, so please don't be offended by how I'll phrase this. But I've seen what God can do if you give him glory and put the work ahead of yourself. Then great things just seem to happen. And you do great things, and you honor everyone around you. And when you come into their presence, they're made better because of you. And so tonight, as we close, I know we enter now officially a new academic year. And for me, it's one where I want to have this year be a new season and a new day for HIU. And I've marked that out. I've said it recently. I believe this is a new season. I believe it's all going to be how we look at it. It's all about perspective. But one thing I've come to realize is that if each of us decides that the work we do, whether student, faculty, staff, is to the glory of our Lord, whatever your tradition, then you now take self and put it out the way and do what is good for others and for the glory. Not for yourself, but for your divine. So I'm going to do something different, and I can't sing like MT because I'm not MT. She's the queen. But since she taught me, I'll stand in her stead. Little ditty, and if you can sing it, sing it. If you can't, it's okay. It's just in my life, Lord, be glorified. That's all. That's all the words. And I just want you, if you can sing it, and join me. In my life, Lord, be glorified, be glorified. In my life, Lord, be glorified today. One more time. In my life, Lord, be glorified, be glorified. In my life, Lord, be glorified today. In my work, in my word, Lord, be glorified, be glorified. In my word, Lord, be glorified today. Be glorified today. Be glorified today. One more time. Be glorified today. And now, God of mercy and love, thank you for our wonderful president, for the gift that he brings to this institution, the labor that he works within. I pray for more laborers to come to share the burden, not to take it, just to help to bear it. I pray for every faculty person that they will give the best of themselves. Pray for every staff person that the fatigue of the press of the new beginning will not overwhelm them, but they shall be strengthened. I pray for every student that they come with open minds, willing not only to learn from their professors, but to learn from one another. To leave here, if they are Christian, knowing more and more about Judaism and more about Islam, to leave there, God, each one having a genuine exchange with the other, so that their lives are enriched, so that when they leave this place, they will be able to testify, wasn't it good for us just to be here? Give each of us the strength we need to handle what we must handle. Give us the grace we need to recognize what we cannot. Then finally, give unto us the power of love to give grace to others who are fellow travelers trying to make it on a long journey. These are the thoughts and intents of our hearts. Brood over them, and at thy will, inshallah, let it be so. And let this year be a great year. Amen.
Amen.
Go in peace.
Some refreshments in the back. We hope you'll just stay and have some cookies and juice and hang out and chat and get to know each other.
Where you staying?
I'm staying at the town and county where they put up all the sisters.
Oh, I think I saw that in your text.
Yeah, over there.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you? I'm good. Alhamdulillah. How are you doing?